tragic incident in New Delhi on Monday evening. A car exploded just outside the Red Fort. At least 13 people have been killed and others injured in this crowded area. You're watching Seema Says, The Wire's news show where The Wire's editor, Seema Chishti, breaks down the big news of the week. And that's what she's going to start with today.
It's a horrific incident. What more can be said? It's terrible. The death toll has reached double digits. It's happened bang in the middle of an iconic landmark in the national capital, the Red Fort. It's deeply concerning. And I think there are various aspects here. There's some talk of investigation having reached where they feel it's part of a conspiracy of the Faridabad raids that happened 2 days ago. There was some word of RDX being found and proper ties with the Jaish, etc. More details are yet to be revealed. The Home Minister Amit Shah was at the site yesterday where people had died, and it was quite a scary sight. A slow-moving small car with high-grade explosives apparently blew up, and there were a lot of the sound was so loud that it was heard in newspaper offices in ITO, which is almost 2 kilometers away from the venue. So it's of grave concern. I think a couple of things come to light. I hope that this is handled and tackled with the seriousness that it deserves, and everything kind of put out, all information shared with the people, so rumors don't fly and propaganda doesn't get an opportunity, and attacks on segments of our population do not start, which are part ignorance and of course part because of malice. So I think that's necessary. Number two, I think eventually accountability and responsibility has to be fixed for these blasts. This has happened in the national capital where it's not even a state government's police. It is police which is directly under the Home Minister, Mr. Amit Shah, and the Modi government. They have to take direct responsibility and accountability and tell us what happens now. The other thing which is of grave concern is that just a day before the blast, there were these protests organized by people who were protesting the horrible air and the government's inaction on it, and they were the ones being rounded up and chased by the police. Police turned up in large numbers to go after dissenters. I think that is something the government will have to decide. Are our security forces, paramilitaries, here to go after internal dissenters and protesters exercising their right, their constitutional rights, or are they to focus their attentions on real matters of state, matters of critical, of doing their job, of securing the nation? So I think that will have to be decided. But on no grounds can the government in office escape accountability. To call for accountability is not being anti-national, but is of doing the right thing. And I hope they step up. It's an absolutely horrific incident.
On the question of accountability, there has been a development in Pakistan that has left some people concerned, which is the discussions around the 27th Constitutional Amendment Bill. Now, some believe, including the opposition parties, that this bill is basically going to undermine Pakistan's democracy in certain ways by giving lifetime immunity to certain authorities, including the president and also the field marshal, the post currently held by Asim Munir, as well as some, tweaks to the judicial process and other things like that. Could you talk about that?
Yeah, Pakistan has seen a very significant kind of a change. The 27th Constitutional Amendment is being debated. It is before the National Assembly, and that's of grave concern and interest, we as being the principal large neighbor of Pakistan. There are two parts of it, one judicial, as you said, and one military. What it does on the military front is actually Article 243, and an amendment to that would effectively make what has been a matter which has always been known, like Pakistan is one country where the army has a nation. Most nations have an army, but in Pakistan, the army has a nation. The army's primacy will now be set in stone and made a constitutional fact. Not only something by statute, but a constitutional fact. And this goes beyond kind of empowering Asim Munir. It gives the Chief of Army Staff, which again was a de facto kind of situation, that he held primacy over the Air Force or the Navy, but now the whole business of a joint Chief of Staff committee, that is being dissolved. That post was to get over on the 27th of November. It will be allowed to die away, and the Pakistan Army Chief will be kind of heading all the forces. The Nuclear Strategic Command is also to be passed on to effectively the Pakistani army. That puts Pakistan, a lot of phrases like hybrid for Pakistan's democracy have been used before, but this puts Pakistan firmly in the kind of democracies that are there in Algeria, Egypt, Turkey, all of that, where the army has a very proper role in managing the democracy, and that will be kind of now etched in stone. This is important for India to take note. What is concerning is that there's not adequate information or debate. We've shut down all kind of, you can't go to the Dawn site, you can't access Pakistani news sources properly. That puts Indians at a disadvantage, because the kind of discussion we should be having, it's a matter of concern for us. It's our neighbor. What having the army really empowered in Pakistan does to its relationship with India is something our think tanks should be debating, journalists should be debating, people should be debating, but we clearly have very little information about it and knowledge about it. The second part of this amendment in Pakistan is the amendment to how the courts function. So a lot of the constitutional powers, or to decide constitutional matters, have been taken away from the Supreme Court and given to a federal court, a constitutional court, an FCC. That means, again, another important institution in otherwise liberal democracies is to be made subservient to the executive. And if that happens, this will be like an amazing chapter which Shehbaz Sharif's premiership will script. I mean, his brother Nawaz Sharif was known for, at least, he was of course close to the army and doing things, but also known for confronting the army and other institutions. And there was that friction which seemed to send the message that Pakistan's democracy, I beg your pardon, is maturing. But that seems to have taken several steps back, and that would take several steps back if these amendments finally go through and the 27th Constitutional Amendment is passed.
Another topic we have to discuss is the chaos that Delhi airport saw on Thursday and Friday last week, when the air traffic controller's messaging system basically crashed, it appears, and more than 600 flights were affected. Of course, flights from Delhi were cancelled, but also other airports saw a lot of chaos because of flights coming to and from Delhi. So what was going on with that?
Yeah, it's really disturbing, because it's just few months after a horrific air crash in Ahmedabad where nearly 300 lives were lost. And there was this big talk of a big review of the entire way in which airlines and the aviation sector is to be managed. There were holes that had been picked by the committee, the parliamentary committee on civil aviation, that had pointed out to serious issues with the DGCA, which oversees all these things. The Air Traffic Guild had pointed out as recently as July that there was performance degradation with the way the ATC was functioning, and the systems needed a boot. So it turns out that nobody has bothered to fix these systems. We're very lucky. It's almost miraculous that we escaped and nothing happened in those 15 hours of chaos, principally in Delhi airport, which is the best. It is the showpiece airport of India, and that happened there. And for 15 hours, flights were kind of, people had to just move quickly to the manual system. There's also been an additional problem of the GPS spoofing that confused pilots, and that happens when pilots have to resort to the global positioning system instead of relying on the instrument landing system, which should be absolutely titch and up to speed, which was not apparently again treated properly and booted and rebooted as it should have been done, not taken care of. And that just suggests a very alarming kind of approach to aviation, which for all modern countries and economies is a very critical kind of a piece in the infrastructure puzzle. Also because this government constantly talks about how improvement is via roads, is via transport, it's via civil aviation. So they should have paid attention to that. And that kind of crumbling and this happening is a very scary scenario.
Our last topic for today is that the Union Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology has released governance guidelines for AI last week. It's a 66-page document meant to regulate and also promote the use of artificial intelligence in India. We know this is happening in the run-up to the AI Summit, the AI Impact Summit that India is hosting in early 2026. So talk about these guidelines and what you're seeing.
So these guidelines are 66 pages, they're in 4 parts. But I think what all of us need to recognize at the heart of it is something saying that it's about governance, i.e. we will not regulate too much and allow AI to just take off. That, I think, is quite scary. At one level, it sounds as if we're just fostering innovation, but India should learn from what's been happening globally. There have been 4 such summits already held in UK, in Seoul, in Paris, and India is to host this global summit in February. But before that, if we learnt lessons on how to manage between the right to innovate freely and yet to protect people, to protect rights, because it's not as if this is not about a moonshot. This is not about even HYV, which the government is undertaking in public public interest. Here are some very important monopolists, people who are so rich that their personal wealth is larger than economies of most G20 countries. So you have those people in charge. So India should have really thought through its approach to AI, that are we going to kind of ride a lot of public infrastructure on this private infrastructure, and what are the risks that would entail. Also, AI farming creativity of ordinary people is something that needs to be looked at, and we need to be concerned about it. That's not happened, but I think India is having a bit of an AI scare, because you have so much of this foreign portfolio investment. Almost 12,000 crore has gone out because India is seen as an AI underperformer. Operation Sindoor was a wake-up call to how AI was being used in the neighborhood for even a critical sector like strategic, and in the armaments case. The tariffs and Trump's treatment of India has also, I think, scared Indians who are riding cozily in the whole Microsoft, OpenAI kind of zone of things and thinking that they're comfortable. And of course, China with DeepSeek having shaken and shown the world how ahead it is in the AI race seems to have scared India into India just pushing for just more innovation. And lastly, I would say that, people like, Chat GPT, OpenAI, Gemini and Perplexity are offering free AI to loads of Indians. And Indians seem to get very flattered because, but we must realize that we're an economy of 900 million internet users. We have such numbers that they're doing it to kind of seduce you slowly into it, and also because we present the numbers that they can run maybe trials on and suck out information from. So that should not flatter us into not having an independent thing, and to just say that we will just wait for we'll wait for rules which we'll shape them out later as things come, maybe making the same mistake that the world made when it did not regulate and it allowed social media companies to completely run riot and actually run the entire information ecosystem in the world. So the mistakes that were made in 2008, I think governance is not something that puts brakes on AI, but it just sets up a sensible kind of guardrails, which are very essential. But the AI guidelines policy seems to think of that as more brakes and something stopping AI from growing.
Thanks, Seema, for breaking all of that down for us. This brings us to the last segment of our show, where we dip into your very deep well of interests. So what recommendations do you have for me and for our viewers this week?
The first recommendation I have for everybody in North India is an N95 mask, which I think we should all wear, because there's a hesitancy in India to accept this as a serious problem. But we're living in practically a gas chamber. Delhi gets a lot of attention, but all of North India is pretty rotten and toxic. The air is bad and the governments don't care. So my first recommendation will be to wear an N95 mask. We'll have some details in the show notes. Yeah. And the second recommendation is something that I saw which took up a lot of my time but was so well worth it. Filmmaker Anurag Kashyap has a 2-part interview with Komal Nahata. And it's really good because it kind of just takes you through from behind the lens, from in front of the lens, kind of a story of how cinema has kind of panned out in the past 2-3 decades. So that may be worth our watchers' time.
Okay.
Your recommendations, Jahnavi?
Okay, well, there was a book that a friend gifted to me recently that I recently finished. It's a book of short stories by Zahid Rafiq called The World with Its Mouth Wide Open, and it was a really very, very lovely read. His use of language, the depiction of Kashmiri lives so I would definitely recommend that. But thank you Seema, for breaking all that down, and thank you all for watching.